And thank you all for listening to these stories and for hearing the direct testimony of folks who are inside. I know that these stories are very hard to hear. It's really difficult to hear of violence, especially as it happens in our own backyards. But as I listened to Erica and I read Bayan's statement, and as I've been hearing about these cases over the past few weeks, it reminds me how deeply these stories are not just stories of immigrants in some abstract, right? But this is violence that was committed because of who these two men were. I don't remember if Erica talked about this specifically, but both Bayan and Ahmed are African immigrants. They're both black men. And Ahmed in particular is a Muslim. And one of the incidents that happened to Ahmed was that while he was being physically assaulted, one of the officers took his prayer rug that he uses 5 times a day to pray and held it over the toilet in an attempt to desecrate one of the few holy items that he's allowed to keep while inside. And I think it's important as we talk about these two men, as we advocate for them, as we stand in solidarity with them, to understand kind of the fullness of their humanity and all of the factors and all of the structures that compounded that resulted in this egregious act of violence, that built the structures that allow such horrible things to happen inside this building behind us. And so as we think about the anti-blackness and the Islamophobia that motivated these assaults and motivated this violence, as we think about what it means for our local sheriffs and our local officers to be deputized as ICE agents, for our local jails to have contracts with the federal government to hold immigrants. I also am thinking of all of the other ways Muslims get trapped in our immigration system. Muslims who get caught up on watch lists and are separated from their families because their visas don't go through. I'm thinking of Casey Goodson, a black man who was murdered by Franklin County sheriffs just earlier this week. And I'm thinking of all of them in one breath. Because if we cannot see the fullness of the picture, if we cannot understand that the immigration system that we're fighting, that the Islamophobia that we see, that the anti-blackness that we see from our immigration system to our policing, if we can't understand that these are all part of one system, and if we can't approach all of them and fight all of them together, we won't be able to protect the Bayans and Ahmeds of today, nor of tomorrow.